week of finding out that, I went deep into ulcers. And I was so sick, and I started this medication and all that.
A week of finding out that he was abusive?
Yes.
Before you got married to this man, did you see any signs, or did he react in some way? Something that could have, indicated that he could be an abuser?
There was no signal.
There was nothing like that?
There was no signal at all.
Okay.
In fact, if anything, it's this type of man whom you just enjoy the company. He's, even to date, there's always something beautiful about a human being. It's just this person who makes sure the souls are connected. The soul tie, the soulmate. He's that kind of person. So the betrayal, when it comes, it's the magnitude. Sometimes it's so dangerous because you give your all and the trust.
Okay. Just to make it clear, Margaret is still in her marriage.
Yes.
And 18 years down the line, she's still there, and she has 4 kids. This is after 18 years, the same man. And she will be telling us a bit about why she chooses to stay, because this is a question many people ask survivors of domestic violence. Why are you still staying in that marriage? Get out, for crying out loud. But then she will tell us her own, her own way of why she stays. But before we get to that, Margaret, I want to get a clear picture of what exactly was happening in your marriage that, for you was abusive. Did he used to beat you? Did he used to call you names? What exactly did he used to do?
Okay, I'm still in the marriage, so I don't want to say what happened in the marriage.
Okay.
Some of these things are still happening, but now what happens, there is growth of abuse.
Okay.
It's like some sort of graduation. You start small, then they grow. And especially when they realize now there's some sort of, let me call it a defense mechanism whereby they will never say yes, and they can never apologize. And they stamp the chest, I did not do it. And well, sometimes even, I don't even blame the women who go through flipping the phone sometimes, because by the time you try to take someone's phones, maybe just to check, it's because there's something telling you it is not right. I have caught messages which are brutal. You go like, okay, fine, this is happening, there's some cheating, there is all sorts of abuse. And the moment you realize and you tell the person, now, you know what, this is it, this is what I've seen, they still deny. So you see, for me also, that is some sort of abuse, because you're made to feel like you're a fool, you're stupid and all that. That's when they even turn physical. They want to hit you, they want to actually go verbal on you. They start it now, exposing it to children. They can call you very big names, and sometimes it's painful, but it reaches a point. You focus back, you check on the generational cycle, what was happening. Like, for instance, I saw my mother being abused, being beaten blue, black, it was a session that was so bad. In fact, my father never used to call my mother by name, or, mama so-and-so. It was some very heavy words. And, I can't even mention them on media, because these people are still there. And I know probably most of them are still watching. But there were heavy words, and even the neighbors were getting concerned. But then, the way Kenya is, it's not like before, because the community would not really intervene. So my mother stayed still, and but not until the age, after 24 years of marriage, it was actually time for her to go. Because this man...
She left her marriage after...
She left her marriage.
You shared with me earlier that you come from, I would say, a clan or an environment that there's been a lot of abuse that has been taking place to the women that are in that particular environment.
Yes.
While you were facing this and looking back at where you come from, was that, at some point, did that motivate you, for lack of a better term, to just persevere and stay on?
Well, let's say yes, because I watched my grandmother died at the age of 50. That's pretty young. And due to those abuses, extreme chronic abuse from a man, and she succumbed to depression. She actually died just sleeping, and it was too much. So I saw my mother getting abused, physical abuse, and at one point I remember I used to tell my father, you know what, up to this point, you must stop. And after Form 4, because I grew up in boarding school, I somehow, because the abuses were so many and my mother would accept everything and anything just to stay around her home, it was time for me to leave. So I end up in this early marriage.
Or because of the abuse that is going on in your family. But then, Margaret, after facing all that, that was happening to the women in your environment, then you become a victim of the same. Didn't this, you know, at some point just click in your mind that probably it could get worse or something could happen? Let me just save myself early. I'm just asking out of curiosity.
All right, that's a good one. The thing is, when I watch these two women, because I've checked on at them, not at, I don't want to call them weak. In fact, the twist of things are, they have made me stronger. Because you just don't start things and quit. Then look at the abuser. What is happening to them? Do they need help? Do they need, must I always fall in the chain of, kwa hii boma, homes just break? You know, sometimes also you have to find, and also when we look also at Daniel in the Bible, what happens to him? Some of those curses, he has to cut them. So
you wanted to change the story. You wanted to change the narrative. And break the cycle of issues that have been happening in your environment. I'll come back to you later. But Alberta, share with me, you know, what are some of the motivating factors or things that could cause, you know, domestic violence? Just generally speaking, from the cases you've handled, what do you think are some of the contributing factors to this vice?
Oh, so yes, contributing factor, but for me, nothing justifies violence. So the women and men I see, for example, at the center, or rather we support through medical treatment and psychosocial support, would tie it up to economic abuse. So, for example, they'd say, he came home, I asked for money to take my child to hospital, I was making ugali sima, took the hot water poured on me. But as mentioned earlier, this is at the point where it's the tipping point, or something just triggers. Usually there's much more that as Margaret mentioned, it's a whole feast, it's a whole wheel, you know, of domestic violence. So at this particular point, you realize when you're talking to the survivors, it's been a period of time, it's been a period of violence. Others would talk, for example, about cheating. So I've seen others who even killed each other because, oh, you're cheating on me and things like that. So others, it's because the child is being abused by one of the parents. So the spouse then, you know, abuses the other. So what contributes? Alcoholism, drugs, you know, so others will tell you, he drank, then he came and beat me up. So for clarity, nothing justifies violence. Contributing factors, drugs and abuse, you know, frustration out of economic issues. So for example, I went to, somebody was looking for a job, they didn't get, so they come and remove the frustrations on you. Others are culturally entrenched. So for example, the wife inheritance we're talking about. For example, forced marriages, that happens also. We have the child marriages where children then are pushed to marriage in certain communities. We have female genital mutilation even within marriages. I once met a lady who had refused to undergo female genital mutilation despite the community that used to practice the same. But when she got married, when she got married, she got pregnant, she was in labor. Instead of the husband taking her to hospital, took her to the aunties first to get circumcised, then to hospital, because then the baby would be born cast or something like that. So all this, then some of it is also culturally entrenched. Yes.
There's a lot that surrounds this, and like Margaret is sharing, it doesn't start in a day. It's a journey that grows from one point to the other. But Grace, earlier you shared something about the mind of the abuser. You know, people never understand why would somebody do something like that. As a psychotherapist, what really happens? Is it childhood? What is it exactly?
Now, I want to say that when we talk about the reasons why people turn to perpetrate violence towards another human being, sometimes we are told that we are trying to give them a pass, but that's not it. I am a doctor, so to speak, of emotional and psychological problems.
Yeah.
And so if I am talking to, and when I say that there are more men who are coming out that I am encountering in my practice, I am talking about abusers.
Oh,
You know, men
okay.
who are actually saying, oh my goodness, I have started to see my children being affected by the way that I deal with my wife.
Okay.
And so, or even the way I deal with my children, there reaches a point, because, you know, when the kids are young, they can't say anything. But then when they begin to be teenagers and they're in the university, and they will stand up and say, Dad, you're not going to hit mom again. You're not going to talk to mom again like that. And so when that happens, then he begins to now attack the kids. And that at that point, you see that that man will come for help. Because, so when I see somebody like that, immediately I go to family of origin. And even talking with Margaret, when we talked, we had a long conversation about where this man comes from, his environment, and Margaret shared with me, even as she shared her own story, that she came from an abusive background, and her husband also came from a background where the family was not well.
Okay.
They were the men were also, you know, doing the same thing.
Okay.
And so when I encounter a man who is an abuser or a woman who is an abuser, my first question is, what happened to you when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And then we find out that there was that culture of abuse.
All right.
And what happens is that because there are no forums for us to talk about the pain that I feel, I keep it, and then when I become grown, I begin to make those judgments that I will never let anyone, you know, perpetrate any violence towards me.
Okay.
And so we become, you find that most of the people who abuse others, they are very defensive. They are always fighting. You know, we talk about the fight, flight, or freeze as our way of dealing with those feelings of being personally attacked. And so what they do, they begin to become very aggressive.
Okay.
And so if I just feel a little bit, you have come into my space, you have disrespected me, you're talking to me in a way, it triggers. And I like to tell people that, you know what, you reverted to being 10 years old when your dad would hit your mom.
Okay.
And so when now somebody comes out and says something to you that is challenging and challenges you, and you feel like you're losing control, you use anger and aggressiveness to control the situation.
Okay.
So we are looking at and I have a few people that I take through dealing with issues of family of origin. Now, I do a lot of social media. My tag is Live by Design, because I do believe that you can design the kind of life you want
to live.
And so what I do is when I post a lot about family of origin issues, daddy issues, mommy issues, and I'm getting more and more young men who are now reaching out and saying, this is what my dad was like. This is the way my dad is like. And that person, if they are not healed, they will go perpetrate the same, because how else do they know how to deal with stress? That's what they saw, because we are people of imitation. And somehow, monkey see, monkey do.
Monkey do.
And so when I'm faced with the same kind of situation, I might actually, unless I'm able to have that ability to understand that I don't want to do that, then I might find myself doing it, because that's what I know. That's what is in my brain.
All right.
You know.
So this morning, we're not justifying the man or the abuser,
no.
but we're explaining that it goes beyond just judging. For you to solve the problem, you have to go deeper and understand where all this is coming from. Let me also understand you know, how it affects somebody. And I'll ask Margaret and Alberta this. And Alberta, I'll ask you this because at some point in your life, you've also faced a traumatic incident. And there is just something that being through a traumatic issue, like what Margaret and others are going through, there is something it does to you as a person. Share with me from where you sit some of the things that you think happened to, you know, somebody who has been through that experience, as we also get to Margaret to also tell us how her experience has affected her personally.
Okay. Earlier, Grace talked about, being helpless, being hopeless.
Yeah.
So those are some of what goes through your mind. Again, you kind of zone out. Everything else then is irrelevant at that particular point. Different situations, others would numb, you know, and try to be not sensitive to what is happening as a coping mechanism, or to be able to go through that, but at times it catches up with you later. Others, as mentioned earlier, then would actually become, would I say, aggressive? Or pent-up anger, bitterness. So you tend to displace that onto others.
Other
you
people.
know,
You become angry and bitter at life.
exactly. Others would try to, like, bury yourself in church, for example, or bury yourself at work. Others become very workaholic, you know, just to be able to cope and get away from it. They're not the best options. Others who get psychosomatic diseases. Earlier, Margaret talked about ulcers, for example. So you'd have all these psychosomatic diseases. Those are some few of what
I don't know, individually, Margaret, from where you sit, how has this changed you? How has this affected you as a person? And what's your coping mechanism as well, as you go through this experience?
Well, I'll bounce that back to Grace, whereby she talked about choices. At first, because of the shock, and you know, for me it was a road shock. It drained me so much to an extent that now I had episodes of depression, and actually at one point it was so bad I was admitted, and now, but at the end of the day, what I did, I started seeking for help. I realized now this battle cannot be just mine alone. When you get at home, the children come to you, you don't even want to see them. Sometimes you're so drained, they come run, you know, and a mother is such a joy to the children. But immediately they're coming to you, just to block. And I realized now I'm going to bed, I just stay there, I'm not even sleeping, I'm looking for sleeping pills. You know, you just want to actually, like, you know, get out of this earth. And I realized now I was getting suicidal and thinking now, hey, this is the end, because you try to talk sense to the abuser, but they're not getting it. So it reached a point now when I seek for help, and I realized now, oh, life is beautiful on the other side. So you start putting on, I don't want to call it a crocodile skin, but somehow you harden, and the better you start coming slowly. Remember, the damages have happened over the years, so also the healing
has
also,
to take some time.
you know, it will take some time. And I started facing the circumstances and the situations, and I started making the little things beautiful.
This is after you started getting counseling sessions?
Yeah, the counseling session when I started with Grace, and I realized, hey, there's life to be lived, you know, there's still that beautiful me that is actually in there. The giant in me must come out, the ego in me must come out. And I realize now, the other thing that I changed the twist of things. Now, why is this man who was once very good, what is happening to him? And we say there were so many things, and now you start going back the history, how he's feeling. In fact, I realized most of it was not even about him wanting maybe to get aggressive. It's just about so many unaddressed issues that were running way back.
So you changed from being a victim to somebody now who is trying to find a solution to whatever it is that was going on.
Yeah, now you start becoming a fighter in your own battlefield. You don't now give in to, you know, I have to die with it, I have to actually get out of this world. You look at these four beautiful souls looking at you, and you're like, I cannot quit. I cannot just give up. So they started motivating, the children started motivating me, and I say, now, the father of these children, probably he needs help too. Because I remember, Grace, when I came to you, it was about quitting. I cannot stay. But after the session, you go and sit down and you say, now, a family is like an empire. You have built it. Now you want to quit and go. Where are you going? It's not about a point of weakness. I started walking and working with a man. Trying to find out now, why do you do all this? Why do you drink? Why do you think?
Did you have these conversations with him? Are you asking him these questions?
Yes.
What was he saying?
And he was saying that I drink because of you. And then I'm like, what did I do? Sometimes you outdo me too much. And I'm like, what exactly did I, you start healing session.
Now you start talking and having conversations.
You start having conversation. What exactly did I do that you felt like you're lower, like you went lower than a man and all that? And sometimes the financial crisis can also contribute to that. And I realized the man was so damaged because maybe his career, and maybe he feels like you're putting in too much, and all those things. So the idea here was to crush and keep on crushing me so that maybe I go lower than him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to take us very fast because of time. It's really interesting what you're sharing with us, and somebody relates with what you're telling us this morning. Alberta, as we talk about the right options that are there, the processes that are there that one can explore, because when you are talking about how it affects somebody and the coping mechanisms that the victims invent for themselves, you said some were not recommended. What's the recommended, option for somebody who is going through any sort of traumatic experience and to have a bias on something that like domestic violence? What are some of the things that you'd advise them to do?
So seek for help in whatever safe space you feel. And this could be different for everyone. So for example, you can reach out to a counselor, others would reach out to the religious leaders, depending on their beliefs. Others would reach out to a hospital, and somehow the hospital, maybe because of physical injuries, they'll be able then to get help. So others would reach out to family. So as earlier, even before the show has discussed, interestingly, that there's a lot that comes into play. So, for example, society's expectation.
Vumilia,
or I'll go to others, for example, and you drive a good car, your children go to school, you're feeding, you're in a good house, so you must be the problem, so what's happening? So a lot of people, or you want to look good among your friends, so you don't talk about, certain things, and you really go through all this. At times, when you reach out for help is when you really know that you're being abused. Sometimes you're being abused and you don't know you're being abused. So for example, you get married and you're told cut off your friends, cut off your, so there's some
resign from your work.
Brainwash that happens and all that, and you're all in love and all that, you're thinking, okay, maybe this is what a good wife needs to be. After all, a patriarchal society, men are the providers, I need to listen, I need to be submissive, and all that, and the woman is the neck, which is fine. So a point where women reach out for help is when they don't want help, and not necessarily that they want to work out. They just, at times, just want the best for themselves, and their children. Because women always think about their children. And at times, you just don't want further harm to yourself or to your children. So you can reach out for help in whatever safe space you feel. And then it's the work of us then, who people reach out to us, to know how to guide them in terms of this is the right referral channel. You physically abused, kindly reach out for help. Just now redirect them then to the best place where they can get assistance. So I don't want to say it's the police or it's the hospital. It's whatever safe space you feel, and it's different for everyone. Someone might just want to just talk about it, vent out, and talk about it.
Just get counseling.
Get counseling, and that's exactly.
And others are
and we really need to be non-judgmental.
And others are a bit skeptical.
I
don't know, let me bring this out. Others are a bit skeptical about reporting this to the police because earlier we've heard how, critics about how police handle this. I don't know, Alberta, has there anything been done to train our officers or something on how to handle victims of rape and all that?
Yes. So one, there are laws that have come into place, like the Protection Against Domestic Violence. So there are legal frameworks, there are policies in place. Second, there's a lot of conversation and trainings, but again, it's just an attitude.
Not everybody is like
so
that.
Sometimes it's not knowing how best to do it. So for example, you have child protection units, we have gender desk, we have police who are very sensitive.
That's true.
Yesterday I was meeting the OCS for Kilimani, and they're very receptive. So different players just having these conversations and being able to be there to support. But the whole idea is to have a seamless flow from one multi-sectoral flows, for example. So for example, if it's medical treatment, then the legal is okay. So what the government has also done sometime last year, last year, but one is to come up with a national joint GBV program, gender-based violence program, that just synchronizes all this and provides, it's called the 5 Ps, that even has an aspect of protection, has an aspect of shelters, for example. Sometimes that woman just wants a halfway house, somewhere I can just go breathe, think, either go back or, reintegrate back to society or move on. So all this now is not in place, but on the process of getting into place.
And that act of protection of domestic violence is also a big plus to this journey. It protects, and a lot of goodies that have come that are different from way back when it was not there. I'm informed we've run out of time for this particular conversation, so I'll just give you a few seconds to give us your final remarks, Grace and Margaret. Let me start with Margaret. For somebody who has worn this shoe and is going through this particular experience, or something related to what you've been through, what do you tell them this morning?
Well, basically, just you must be strong as a woman. Sometimes it's that point where you feel this is it. You have to get out. You have to be bound. But behind that spiritual vampire who is sucking out you, trust me, there's also a very beautiful human being who can be reformed within a triad of you as the woman, the man, and God.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Grace.
Yeah. And I want to say very quickly that there is a number, 1195. That if you are going through domestic violence, you're feeling at the end, before you do that other thing that all of us don't want to hear about, please call that number. There is help for that. And then very quickly, I want to say, when I had Margaret come in, she was suicidal and she was feeling there is no way out. So what did we do? We talked about options. What are the options that we have? And I told her, anything you can think of, whether you will do it or you won't. So, of course, for me, when she told me her story, the first thing I'm thinking, we need to get you out. But, of course, now in Kenya, we don't have shelters. We don't have anywhere to say you need to go there. You can go there for 3 days and get better, get some support. And so I was actually surprised that a few days later, when we touched base with her, she was this very strong woman, and saying that I am actually going to stand up. I'm going to, I feel stronger, and it came out, because one of the things that we want to tell anybody in an abusive relationship is that at some point we need to help you to get out of the victim place and become a survivor, so that you can stand up and be able to say, no, I won't allow this to happen. And I say, don't live at the point of weakness. Live at a point of strength. Because then you make a decision, and 6 months down the line, if you left, you will not be going back. Because you made that decision with the help of people objectively helping you to identify the options you have, so that you can be able to make the best choice for you.
Wow, that's a parting shot right there. Do not live at the point of weakness. Live at the point of strength. When you're so sure of what you're doing, your mind is clear, you've made up your mind that this is not the place I want to be, and you move on. 6 months down the line, that decision will still stand. Many live in a rush, and apologies, sweet apologies come and gifts come, and you go back thinking things have changed, then things become worse than they were before. So this conversation is something we cannot complete in one sitting, but I'm sure that the far we've gone, we've inspired you, and we've shown you that there is hope, there is help out there. Just reach out and look for that help. And you can also turn from being a victim to being a survivor, and bringing hope to others that have been through the same situation you're going through, like what Margaret has done this morning. Thank you so much for watching Women at the Forefront. Next week, we will have another conversation touching on the lives of women as we seek to empower you out there. But the show is not over yet. My colleague Samuel Njoroge is coming up with the health item of the day as he discusses meningitis this morning. Today being the World Meningitis Day, it is something that you really want to know about as part of awareness, so that you can be able to make better informed decisions regarding your health. We take a short break now.